rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Good evening, everyone. As we start tonight, the first thing I would like to do is welcome our newest member on the Board of Selectmen, Ms. Phyllis Locke. Congratulate her on her win at the polls on Saturday. So welcome aboard. I look forward to working with you. And also, I'd like to say thank you to all the voters of Lunenburg for your overwhelming support for me in my reelection too. So I thank you for that. It's really humbling to get that kind of support in every area of the town, and I truly do appreciate it. I look forward to working again for the next 3 years for the town, in service of the town. I want to congratulate everyone else who won on Saturday, and in case people did not hear who the winners were on other races. So for the school committee, I congratulate Michael Mackin and Heather Sroka on their wins. For the Parks Commission, Mr. Robert Rabuccio. For the Planning Board, Mr. Kenneth Chenis. For the Housing Authority, Carolyn Fortin. And in a write-in vote on the Sewer Commission, Mr. Troy Daniels. So congratulations to all those who won. And lastly, and just as important, I want to thank all those candidates who didn't win, but certainly were brave enough to put their names in. Well, I'm sorry, I'm reading from the article, so I apologize for the library trustees who I am embarrassed to say I don't have the names of in front of me, and I don't know them personally, so I apologize. If you say them, I will say them on TV. You'll introduce them. Again, I apologize. I'm just reading from the article from the Ledger, and if it makes you feel any better, I am once again somebody else. I am Thomas Alonzi this time. I really didn't like being Tom Alfonso, so we changed it. I'm gonna try that. So I apologize to the Library Board of Trustees members. To everybody else who won, who didn't win, but was brave enough to throw their hats into the ring. You know, it takes a lot of time and energy to run for the public office. You really put yourself in the spotlight. You open yourself up to a lot of admiration and a lot of criticism all at the same time. And I applaud all their willingnesses to throw their hats in the ring and to volunteer. I also want to applaud everybody's positive campaign about how we could maintain and improve Lunenburg. And in the end, that's what the citizens of Lunenburg really want, and that's what they deserve. So I thank everybody on their victories and their campaigns, and thank everybody, all the 1,248 voters who came out. That turns out to be 18% of the vote. So while I'm happy for those people who came out, I always try to encourage a more inclusive vote. So I'd love to see it to get in the 30 to 40, God forbid 50 range if that would ever happen, but it's certainly a goal to strive for. I will now open up and ask if anybody from the board has any opening comments. None. Anybody from the public have any public comment?
I'd like to say thank you to the Board of Selectmen that invited me here to speak tonight about the Japanese exchange student program that is coming to Lunenburg the last weekend of June 27th through 29th. We are accepting 55 students this time. This program has been coming to Lunenburg for the past 20 years. We normally have 25 to 30 students. This year we have 55 students, and we are really in need of host families. We would welcome anyone who would like to open their home for these 2 evenings. It's really one full day. The students arrive at 6 p.m. on Friday evening, the 27th, and they are leaving by 8 a.m. on the 29th. So it's really one full day. The students are here for 15 days total, where they are visiting New York City, Boston, Washington, D.C., and their trip to Lunenburg is really to learn about the American home, to see what an American house looks like, and to see how our houses are run. They're very, very simple requests that the students ask. They like to visit our grocery stores. They like to cook with our host families. They like to just see our yards and our nature and our small town, our community. So I would encourage anyone who is either an empty nester and has a little bit of space, or if you have children, this is a great educational experience for the children. And for those of you who have children, I want you to think about how you would feel if your child was going to another country and you would want them to be welcomed and greeted by the community that they're going to visit. So it's really, really important. I have my information on the school website. It's going to be in the Ledger this week. It has been in the Sentinel. And so I'm out there trying to get as much help and support as I can. And I want to thank everyone who has supported this program for their generosity and work, and we'd like to keep it going for as long as we can. My children have been involved for 22 years, and my youngest is still involved in the program. He enjoys it. I've had nothing but good experiences with our students.
And how would somebody get in touch with you if not for the website? Is there something else you have?
There is. There's a
Email?
telephone number, 978-582-5579. That's our home number. We do have an answering machine, and if no one picks up the phone, we will be glad to call you back. We also, on the website, under kbmqueen@yahoo.com, and I'll be glad to answer any questions.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Ibisel?
last year we were able to host 4 of the students. It was a great experience for us. At one point, one of the students engaged in discussion about how we viewed national defense versus Japan with its national defense and what happened after World War II. And it was just an interesting cultural exchange that, I've gone through the school system and learned history, but I learned something different from a different viewpoint. And I think it's great if people have kids that can do it, but clearly adults without kids, there's a space for it too, and they bring a wealth of knowledge into your home as well. I'd encourage people to do it.
Absolutely. And thank you, Jamie, too, for your support this year. We appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other public comment from the public? One announcement, the continuation of the ever-popular yard waste days from Saturdays, continuing through May 31st. So there's 2 more Saturdays, if I calculate correctly. From 8 a.m. to 4 p.m., acceptable materials are grass clippings, bark mulch, wood chips, leaves, brush, shrubberies, and plantings. You can bring the material in any container, boxes, barrels, trash cans, tarps, flower pots, etc., but the containers must be removed and taken by the resident. No household garbage, trash, or rubbish of any kind will be accepted. No materials within the landfill area, be they sand, stone, gravel, etc., are to be given away or sold. Access will be restricted to the disposal area only. Commercial landscapers will not be allowed to dump. It is open to Lunenburg residents only, and travel is permitted only on the town easement. No trespassing on the Tri-Town Land Development property. Okay. So at 7 p.m., we have a joint meeting with the Library Board of Trustees to consider and/or appoint Mr. Garrett Thompson to an open seat on the Library Board of Trustees. But first, in all fairness, if the chair would introduce the 2 new members, that would be excellent.
I'll let them introduce themselves.
Okay.
Hi, I'm Susan Visser. I live on Goodrich Street.
And I'm Harry Kubetz. I live on Howard Street.
Thank you. And I apologize for not having your names.
It's okay. Would you like all of us to introduce ourselves?
Sure.
For a matter of record?
Sure.
Okay. Jeannie Raboyne, 395 Page Street, Chair of the Board of Trustees of Lunenburg Public Library.
Dick Mayu, 88 Laurel Lane, Vice Chair.
Lars Widstrand, Sunny Hill Road, Recording Secretary.
Robin Venezia, 1402 Massachusetts Avenue.
Okay, thank you. So we are here before you tonight. Give you a little bit of history. We'll go through the history again. After the March Town Caucus, Joanne McQuaid asked or expressed her desire to resign as a trustee for the Lunenburg Public Library. And what she did is she submitted a letter of resignation on April 15th of 2014, and I know that letter was sent to Bob Ebersol, our rep from the Board of Selectmen. And the letter was presented to the Board of Trustees on April 17th, 2014. After that, we asked Mr. Garrett Thompson, in the back there, who has been a former trustee for the Lunenburg Public Library, if he would be willing to take on the vacant seat from Joanne for the unexpired term, accordance with Town Charter 3-1 F2. So we're here before you to get your acceptance of this change.
Okay. So I'm just reading the expiration term here.
No, it's to the next election.
Right, that's what I thought too. Okay. So just to be clear, it's not till the unexpired term, it's just until such time as another election would be held, which would be next May.
Okay, it'll be next May.
That's per the charter, okay. And that's what I was just checking.
All right, and I took that information right off the Board of Selectmen agenda. Consideration of appointment of Garrett Thompson to the vacant seat on the Library Board of Trustees, unexpired term. There wasn't anything in there that said, but as long as we're on, we understand that it's for this year. And then Mr. Thompson can run
Okay,
next year if he wants, or there could be somebody else
sure.
as well.
Anybody have any questions for the Library Board of Trustees? Or should we have Mr. Thompson come up for those who do not know him?
It's not like you haven't been here before.
I know.
right?
Hi, Garrett Thompson, 10 Whiting Street, Lunenburg, Mass. Yes. Questions,
Any
comments?
Why do you want to do it again?
Because I like the library. And it's, it's a good group of people, and, they asked me, and so why not?
And it's good because he understands, how the board is run and the relationship with our library director and the town. And so this is good. This is good for us.
Right.
His appointment would give you back to a full board?
Back to a full board,
Excellent.
which is the most important thing.
Right.
Right.
Mr. Chairman, I nominate Garrett Thompson to fill the vacant position on the Library Board of Trustee until next town election.
Second.
And somebody want to nominate him on your side, and then we can all vote.
I'd like to nominate Garrett Thompson to fill the expired term until the next election.
Okay, I need a second.
I'll second.
Okay.
Okay, so from our board, all those in favor of Mr. Thompson serving for the next year until the next election, next May, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? None.
Okay, and from our board, may I have a vote?
All in favor?
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
I don't think I followed those, but I think it was close, but I think you got it.
I think we were pretty close.
Yeah.
Okay.
I appreciate Mr. Thompson coming forward and, of course, filling a vacancy. Everybody who volunteers for that. I mean, it's an important job, and good things are happening always at the library. I applaud your board, keeping up that good work.
Okay, thank you very much, and thank you for taking the time for meeting with us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Garrett. Thank you.
Yeah, we probably should. Yeah.
All right.
I just did this at
No, I
7.
know. Got it.
We're going to jump down for a second to do the board reorg, which arguably may have been before that, but I didn't want people waiting. So, as with every elected body, after the elections, we reorganized chair, vice chair, clerk on this board. And so I will begin by opening the nominations for Chair of the Board of Selectmen.
I would nominate Tom Alonso.
Second.
Any other nominations? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. Thank you all for your support. I open nominations for Vice Chair of the Board of Selectmen.
Mr. Chairman, I nominate Paula Bertram for Vice Chair of the Board of Selectmen.
I have a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? None. And I will open nominations for the Clerk of the Board of Selectmen.
I nominate Jamie Toll.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? None. So it was not so much of a reorganization, I guess. Yes.
No, we don't
Same
need
chair.
to switch chairs. We're all set.
We're all set. Okay, so do we want to take up the appointments? So we have 2 appointments tonight for 2 acting police sergeants to the position of police sergeant, effectively removing the acting. And I will introduce the Chief of Police, Mr. Jim Marino.
Mr. Chairman, thank you for having me. Congratulations on your election, and Phyllis, you as well. A patrolman said to me, "You can make me stack wood, I'll do it for you. Ask me to do anything, I'll do it for you. Just don't ask me to ask somebody else to do it." You know, the job of a supervisor isn't for everybody, and that doesn't mean anybody can do it. We need good patrol officers, and we have good patrol officers. You know, this was a decision that we made, and it wasn't based on any politics. It was based on the ability of the candidates that I'm going to put forth before you, both of which have a lot of experience and a lot of training. And now they've had a year and a half, or almost a year and a half worth of experience as acting supervisors. And when we made them acting supervisors, the only thing I asked them is that I don't want disciplinarians, I want leaders, and I want mentors. And I want you to lead by example. And they've accepted, and they've met all of those requirements. And I'm here today to ask you to make them their appointments full-time, because I think they deserve it. So with that, I'd like to introduce Sergeant Sean Connery, and I regret that Jack Hebert, I don't think he was able to make it. He had some childcare issues, and he called me late this afternoon to tell me that he couldn't, and he fully apologizes for that. And I say about Jack is one of the hardest workers. He works probably the most hours of anybody, and he felt really bad that he couldn't be here tonight. And again, he apologizes for that, as do I. But at any rate, I have Sean here. I'd like to stand up.
Would you like to say anything?
This is my 24th year of service at the end of this month. Just like to thank the town for giving me the opportunity to be here for 24 years and servicing the community as I have. And thank you for this opportunity for the promotion.
This is your promotion, is that correct?
No, this is,
The chief's promotion?
the chief has recommended to me the appointment, and these are my appointments under the charter for you to ratify this evening. There was some other information in the packet that the chief is also interested, or has also made a departmental assignment of one of the officers to detective. So that is something that he did. Officer Thibodeau has been appointed as the detective for the department.
Okay, and is there any reason why that's not on?
That is a departmental assignment that the chief makes.
Okay. And from the letter that you have sent to us, to the Board of Selectmen, these are the people, so you're going with the chief's recommendations that they should be promoted to permanent sergeant.
Yes, I am.
Okay. Any questions for anybody from the board? I would entertain a motion.
I would make a motion to ratify the town manager and the police chief's recommendation and for Sean Connery and Jack Hebert to the position of police sergeant.
Second.
Before we vote, I just want to say that I have had the fullest confidence in the chief and his appointments, and the two acting sergeants being promoted sergeants. I know somewhat, and I know that their service to the town is exemplary, so I fully support this as well. And I thank you. I thank the chief, and I thank the two sergeants, the soon-to-be two sergeants, for continuing their service to the town. All those in favor of the ratification of Sean Connery and Jack Ebert to the position of police sergeant, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? None. Congratulations and good luck. Keep up the good work.
Thank you for your kind words.
Congratulations, Sergeant.
Thank you very much.
Mutual aid.
Sure, we can go to the mutual aid. Let's talk about mutual aid. Request to review and approve the Middlesex County Interagency Mutual Aid Agreement for the police.
Okay. We currently have a mutual aid agreement with most of the cities and towns in the Worcester County area on those contiguous borders of Lunenburg. This is the Middlesex County, which is the Townsend Shirley side of Lunenburg. This is more or less some housekeeping done on the part of most of the law enforcement agencies in the state in response to, terrorist threats and the like. Basically what it does is it gives the police authority to go over the town line and gives them the same powers and same indemnity that they would have if they were exercising their powers of arrest within the confines of the town of Lunenburg. We're presently signed on to the statewide mutual aid agreement, Worcester County, and now we're trying to get on the Middlesex County, just as a more or less a housekeeping initiative. Mutual aid. Obviously, mutual aid agreements are designed to increase the capacity of the police departments, and of course, as I said, particularly in times of critical incidents. So, I just think it's a good idea in our effort to become more organized as a police department.
Is this a new agreement or a renewal of an old agreement?
No, this is a new one.
Okay, so this is new. So,
Yeah.
Have we had these with any other county?
Yeah, we have it now with Worcester, and we have actual statewide, but this is like all-encompassing. This kind of covers us completely, because, where we border Middlesex County, we border Worcester County. And the statewide mutual aid is a little different. It's basically for major incidents. For instance, if something happened in the western part of the state or in Boston again, and they needed mutual aid, then, that was the intent of that mutual aid. This is more of a localized thing, more of a localized mutual aid agreement. And it's what's happened in the state is there was a case back in the early 90s. It was LeBlanc, Commonwealth versus LeBlanc, which took our ability to exercise our powers of arrest over the town lines, even on fresh and continued pursuit, unless it was an arrestable offense. That we actually had. We had authority to arrest within our own jurisdiction. So now basically if a car goes over this has nothing to do with this, don't let me confuse it, but today, if a car goes over the town line and you're chasing it, but it's not an arrestable offense, or if you're trying to pull a car over and it's not an arrestable offense, we really can't pull it over once it crosses the town line. That's a whole other problem, but this begins to address some of those issues. These mutual aid agreements, they're trying The Mass Chiefs of Police Association for years has been trying to get corrective legislation so that our powers of arrest, no matter what, are good over the town line. Unfortunately, there's a lot of politics involved in that. It's taken a long time. So in the meantime, what they've done is encourage us to go with these mutual aid agreements. This gives us more authority over town lines.
Does this apply, Chief, does this apply to all towns in Middlesex County or just the bordering ones?
Whoever signs on, yeah, oh yeah, does it apply? Yes, it does. This will apply now for all towns in Middlesex County. Yeah. Air, Shirley, Groton, and so on and so forth.
But even way on the other
Right.
side of Middlesex?
It would, yeah.
Just because I have not had the opportunity to read this through,
Mhm.
and I just want to be clear, what authorities, if one of our officers is in air,
Mhm.
under what circumstances will they have police authority?
Right now, nothing unless they're appointed there. There's another under, there is not. As long as we don't have a signed mutual aid agreement, they wouldn't have powers of arrest. They'd be a citizen. If it was a felony, they could make a citizen's arrest, just like anybody else could. That would be it. With a mutual aid agreement, now they would have powers of arrest if they needed it. If they needed to make an arrest, it would be good with a mutual aid agreement. Without it, we have nothing.
But don't we sign, appointing officers from Shirley? I know we do that every year. But
Yes, we're still doing that in a couple of towns. Townsend and Shirley, for whatever reason, we still appoint. I don't think it'll be necessary once this is signed.
Okay.
I think that'll all start to go away once this is signed, because they're both Middlesex County. And I don't think we've ever had an actual mutual aid agreement with Townsend and Shirley. We have one with Fitchburg, Leominster, and Westminster, but never with Townsend and Shirley. So Townsend and Shirley, we've been actually having people appointed. This will probably eliminate that, the necessity to actually have everybody appointed.
Okay. Any questions for the chief?
I guess I'm just not clear. Does this only apply if they're asked to, I know the appointments we make.
Yeah.
Up until now,
Right.
of towns and officers, for example, is if we're going to have them work with our police department for a particular reason.
Like we've asked them, right?
Right.
Yeah. This is different.
That's what I thought.
You can actually initiate something in another town if it's necessary.
Okay.
Whereas under the other rule, there's a statute that says the officer in charge of that police department has to request the help, and then mutual aid kicks in. This is a little different. It can be self-initiated.
Okay.
So
The section actually says self-activation 6.04.
Yeah.
So any police officer who observes or become aware of any violation of law within the territorial limits of any party may exercise police powers to prevent loss or damage, prevent unlawful behavior, investigate criminal violations. And then there's a provision immediately thereafter, as soon as possible, they then have to notify the community that they're in when they do that.
So, I just want to understand this. If we sign on to this and other people other cities and towns sign on to this,
Mhm.
it's reciprocal.
It is, yes.
The reason I ask that is because anytime we appoint somebody for our police department, we meet them, we know the chief, we know you,
Mhm.
we know about the officers. To give, I want to say that on first read, I'm at least not completely comfortable to entrust somebody to have police authority in our town by nature of this agreement, who I've never met, and, that could cause problems. I can see how that might cause problems in jurisdictions. I'm not saying, obviously, it doesn't mean that it would, it just means that it could.
Right.
And I have a concern about that.
There's always that possibility, but I've never known it to happen. This is typically where There's extenuating circumstances that they got to come over the town line. And typically, and I don't ever recall an instance where the other jurisdiction isn't calling and saying, look, I got an issue here, I need your help, and I'm in your community. I can't ever remember that happening. It's just not a practice. And a lot of it's, I think a lot of it's governed by Department of Policy. I mean, we have right now, rules and regulations, we're not supposed to leave town unless we notify somebody, typically it says an officer in charge or somebody, another police officer. We don't leave our jurisdiction without notifying somebody in our own department even. And so that prevents somebody from just arbitrarily just leaving Lunenburg when they're working and going somewhere else. And these things are just for circumstances out of necessity. I have to, it's not a fresh and continued pursuit. Fresh and continued pursuit gives us the right to cross town lines no matter what. This is a different thing. This is, I don't think I have an arrestable offense, but guys going over the line before I have a chance to even pull him over, or he's got, I can't even think of a good example. I'm crossing down the John Fitch and they're yelling, hey, I got an armed robbery suspect running down the John Fitch Highway. What do? You can't ignore it. You have to somehow give aid. But like I said, those things always generate, I'm in town, I'm in your city, I'm observing this person you're looking for, or something to that effect. So it's not a practice like, I think tonight I'm just going to drive into Fitchburg and wherever and just start locking people up. That's just never happens. This is always some emergency situation where you have to go into another jurisdiction. Typically is a situation where you have to go into another jurisdiction. And as I said, I can't ever remember a case where somebody actually comes in your jurisdiction and doesn't let you know that that's happening. So the police department that, like our police department would be notified and we'd go and assist right away. So it's, I get what you're saying though. I know what you're
It's enormous authority for people in our town that we have no knowledge about. And that could be, I hear everything you're saying and that it's never happened, but there should be. I guess I wanted to be very honest. I wanted time to read it more fully.
Yeah,
and before voting on it tonight.
There's no hurry on this. I mean, I'm presenting this absolutely no rush.
Because I think there should be language that, and it doesn't say that in this self-activation paragraph. There is nothing that says it has to be extenuating. I mean, there's nothing that says that if something is happening, you would think that the first thing they should do, if they are not uniformed and in there for a specific purpose that originally brought them over the line, that they should contact the nearest police force, the town or city's police force in the jurisdiction that they're in, because that would preempt this. I mean, again, just because it's never happened, policing in other places is enormous power that you give somebody, and people that you've not met or had any dealings with at all, and because it's a whole county now. It's not, we're not just talking Shirley and Air that we have close relationships with, or Townsend. Middlesex is a large county.
Right.
So
I think if you read into it, it becomes clear that this is generally used only when the other jurisdiction is calling you for help.
Okay.
That gets you into their city and you're not there without any authority.
And if that happens, if that's in here, then that would be perfect. That's all.
Yeah, and that's what I'm trying to get at is this. That's the intent of this whole thing. Have I heard of cases where, there's a questionable case of jurisdiction where somebody has to go over the town line? Yeah, that does happen, but as I said, I've never heard of that happening. Well, they'll always call and say, I've got an issue here, I need some help from your jurisdiction. And it doesn't happen that often. It's more of an exception to the rule. This is more or less, we're calling you to come help us, and here's what we're giving you for authority, is what this says. And I think if you...
And if that's what it says, and again, I was very honest, I haven't had a chance to read it, and I want to. If that's what it says, then I have no problem. If they're called into the jurisdiction and this just gives, without needing special authority, by being a member of this agreement, mutual agreement, gives them an authority when called in, I have absolutely no problem with that at all.
And quite frankly, I've been spending so much time trying to rewrite bylaws, traffic rules and regulations. I really haven't had a chance to, again, read through this carefully so that I can inform you. So if we need more time, that's fine with me. It's not something I'm rushing into. It's just we're doing some house cleaning here. We're trying to become more organized. Sure. And this is a trend throughout the whole state until something's done in terms of the LeBlanc case, and if there's ever any kind of resolution to that case, which will pretty much obliterate this. I mean, there's a lot of states that police officers have statewide powers of arrest. And that's not a bad thing. So but that's governed by policy. You know, they have powers of arrest throughout the state, but that doesn't mean they run between jurisdictions. Every police department has policies on how you use those powers, and how you're governed through policy. It just eliminates any possibility that you're in a jurisdiction where you get in a jam and you have to make an arrest. You don't want to put yourself in a libelous situation. So. That's all, and that's something obviously we're always trying to prevent. But by all means, there's no rush at all. So,
Mr. Chairman?
Mrs. Bertram.
My understanding is we have these mutual agreements, aid agreements with Fitchburg, with Leominster.
Yeah.
Do we have one with Worcester County as well?
Yeah, we have one with Worcester County. We have the drug task force has their own. Because some of them have to have different language.
So my question is, I'd like to take a look at the wording in the Worcester County mutual aid agreement and compare it with this agreement.
Okay.
My reading of a mutual aid agreement is that if there were an incident, a large incident in Lunenburg, or there was a situation that we needed assistance, this would authorize you to contact them and call in forces as well as equipment from other communities, similar to our fire department, and basically to get that aid from other police departments when it's needed, and that obviously holds true that they could call Lunenburg and request assistance. I mean, it's not really, the goal is not to just empower police officers witnessing acts.
Right.
It's to empower mutual aid of the departments.
That's right.
Is my understanding.
That's what I mean. Yeah, exactly. If you read into that, that's primarily that's the primary authority it gives you is based upon one community asking for help from another.
Right. So I think if we could get a copy of the Worcester agreement, I think that we could read them both.
All right, I'll have to.
Mr. Chairman, I think that if the chief takes special attention to 6.04 self-activation, I think that is the issue of any police officer being in town and observing something going wrong. I read this as saying they would have the authority to do it, not even fresh pursuit. So I think we need to have further discussion on that. If we can get the other agreements of mutual aid, I think that we can be consistent.
I agree.
All right. Okay.
Excellent.
So we'll just revisit this.
Yes.
Thank you.
I appreciate you bringing it forward to us.
No problem at all.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Good to have you back.
Thanks.
Take care.
All right, it's 7:30. Brandon Kibbe from the land acquisition team on the request to the revised purchase and sale agreement on the Lane property, and a request to name the property, quote, the William H. and Sandra B. Lane property at Lunenburg Town Forest, unquote.
Good evening, Brandon Kibbe, 146 Rolling Acres Road. As you are aware, obviously, we had a very successful town meeting vote approving the Lane acquisition, and you'll remember that vote approved the acquisition at $3,600 per acre or appraised value, whichever is lesser. And we were at the time in the process of finalizing our review with the seller of that appraisal, give them an opportunity to see if they found any flaws in the appraisal, if there were any errors either in the math or in the content, if there was any market data they had overlooked. They have finalized their review and have agreed to accept the appraisal. That is important because the appraisal has identified the price for the 168 acres that was approved at town meeting to be closer to $2,400 per acre making the purchase price $400,000 versus the $604,000 that was fully approved at town meeting. So I thank the appraiser for his very diligent work. I thank the sellers, in fact, for their very diligent review of that work. And I think what we've come to now is a full understanding of what the full fair market value of that property is. So what you have in front of you this evening is an amendment to the purchase and sale contract that you had reviewed and signed back in April, which established the terms of the sale. And what this amendment intends to do is just to codify everybody's agreement to what the final structure is. There were a couple of contingencies in there. There was the appraisal contingency. There was a contingency in there that offered, that allowed the seller to choose whether or not they were going to sell us another 5-acre parcel, which they have chosen not to sell us. This amendment does those two things, codifies the appraised value and codifies that they are not, in fact, selling us that parcel C, which is what shows up in your draft document there. The other thing that this does, which is something that the seller has asked, I don't know if it's truly a concession or not based on the change in price, but the seller has asked for the property to be named on their behalf. So it would be named the William H. and Sandra B. Lane property at Lunenburg Town Forest. That's what they've asked us to consider. We have reviewed that proposal with the members of the Open Space Acquisition Advisory Team, and I think unanimously are in favor of the idea of acknowledging the family's willingness to work with us, because frankly they didn't have to do that. To work with us both in terms of the time frame. We have an extended timeline on this project. We have another not insubstantial contingency that's part of this, which is the grant application that we've discussed. And their willingness to work with us, I think, is worthy of that sort of acknowledgement. What that acknowledgement means on the ground is that the land grant program, if we're successful at getting that land grant, requires us to put some signage up on the property that also recognizes the state for their contributions to the project. We would place this name on that kiosk in order to acknowledge the name. Plus, we would, if there were maps and other types of publications, it would be the William H. and Sandra B. Lane property at Lunenburg Town Forest. We are also, in the context of this agreement, allowing the family, if they so choose, to develop a plaque or an engraved stone or some other sort of monument that they could place. We would have the right to approve where that got placed. We'd be able to approve the size, the wording, that kind of thing. So that is sort of the other aspect of what's contained in this agreement. They had originally asked if they could name, rather than calling it Lunenburg Town Forest, call the entire thing the William H. and Sandra B. Lane property, which is not exactly fair to all the people who sold property to the town in the past for the existing 280 acres of town forest that's there. And so we asked them to acknowledge the fact that we would just name the property they're selling to us for that purpose.
I have no problem with the naming. I think you're right in your estimation that they worked very cooperatively with us, very proactively with us, with all these contingencies, and they were very good to work with, very reasonable. So I don't have any problem with that. I don't have any problem with the purchase price being changed. Do you have anybody, for people listening back home, can you just, or do you have the numbers for what that breakdown with that change would be, what the grant would be for at this pace, and what the town would be?
Yeah, I do. I did those numbers this afternoon. So it's 64% of $400,000. Any of you with a calculator? Bob, thank you. It takes 256,000 is, thank you, is 64% of 400,000, and then 64% of the $10,000 we had put approved for a survey. So $6,400 for that, $6,400 for title certification, and then 64% of recording fees and things like that. So you may, we approved 624,000. We would spend a very small fraction of that.
So the town share is going to be about between 150 and 170,000.
Yeah, I think it's around 176,000 if I remember.
Down from what was pitched at the town meeting, just so
2.25.
Right,
225.
So $50,000 difference, which is fabulous.
Yeah. So I think it's a fabulous outcome. There's still work to be done, obviously, with the grant proposal. And in fact, I had asked Carrie about the possibility of having you this evening. One of the things in the grant application, it requires authorization of sort of a point person for the grant application. And so because it wasn't on the agenda in time, I feel like that's something you all will take up next week. But
2 weeks.
In 2 weeks, excuse me. The idea here would be to authorize myself and Kerry both jointly and individually to work as point people for the grant. And that way we can get the grant application submitted, and then when it comes time to processing and contracting and everything, Kerry will have the authorization she needs to process payment and all that other good stuff. So we'll table that for now, but that's something that'll come up at the next one. So in front of you today is the amendment to the P&S.
Anybody have any questions?
We did, just so you know, I did check with Planning Board and the Conservation Commission to see if there was anything in the bylaws that had anything to do with naming of properties or anything. We couldn't find anything or come up with anything. Town Council had nothing, so we figured that certainly warranted your review and approval.
And I would, with no further questions or comments, I would entertain a motion on the proposed amendment to the purchase and sale agreement between Sandra B. Lane, trustee of the Mulpus Brook Realty Trust, and the town of Lunenburg.
I would make a motion to approve the revised purchase and sale agreement and the request to name the property the William H. and Sandra B. Lane property at Lunenburg Town Forest.
Second. Further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None, so it is unanimous.
Perfect. Thank you. So
And
it
I
has
just-
to be signed in quadruplicate.
Yeah.
Of course.
And I just want to take a moment to thank Brandon for all his hard work. I know working through the review and everything, I know you've put in a lot of hours and a lot of dedication, and you're continuing to work on the grant application. So I just want to take a second to thank you for all your hard work.
My pleasure. It's been a few sleepless nights.
And there's no problem with the delay of 2 weeks for the...
No, the application is due on the 18th, and in fact, they have an open question period right now with the grant application that closes on June 11th, and I'm not anxious to submit the application until that question and answer period is closed, in case anything comes up that we want to address in the context of our application. I think I've said it a million times, but I think our application is going to compete very well for this. Curling up with it again and starting to fill in all the blanks, we should have no problem whatsoever. I mean, this project hits in spades all of their requirements and then some. And it's, on top of that, it's a fantastic deal. So, if they say no, I'll be crushed.
Well, we'll just have to do our best to make sure they don't.
Yeah. So, and that's actually, and that's not a bad point too, is that I've asked the Nashua River Watershed Association to draft us a letter of support on behalf of this project. There are probably other organizations either here in town or outside of this.
How about state legislators?
I was going to say, I haven't made contact with the state legislators about doing that, but if one of you wanted to do that.
I can do that, but I won't do that until you've submitted it, and then I'll ask them.
It's actually better to attach it to the grant.
You attach it to the
So
submittal.
I will contact our the two representatives in the Senate.
And the webpage is still live and active, and so if they have any questions about it and you want to point them to savethelaneland.org, they can find lots of great information there.
Just forward that link to me. So
I could try.
Is it just
savethelaneland.org?
Land?
Yep.
.org.
There. So forwarded.
What?
So forwarded.
Assuming you transcribed it correctly.
Yeah.
Brandon, you're starting to talk like a lawyer.
I spent a lot of time
You've been at this too long.
Spend a lot of time with them.
Okay.
All right, so I'll ask them.
Yeah, and then, yes, if other organizations, whether it's the gardening club or the snow riders or, who knows, the library trustees, I don't know. But, any organization that wants to support this, I encourage them to do that. And,
Have you asked the Conservation Commission?
I haven't, because they're going to be the signatories
Okay.
on the grant application. They're sort of
They're probably for it.
I'm guessing. So, and plus we have all unanimous votes from all the various town boards and things. So it's sort of better, I think, to have outsiders supporting the project.
Excellent.
Terrific.
All right.
Thank you all very
Thanks
much.
again.
All right.
Thank you.
Okay. Next, item 4, review and discuss the town manager's annual performance evaluation. So I have submitted to everybody in hard copy the summary evaluation. Remember, according to the town charter, only the summary evaluation, which the chair prepares with the input of all of the members who are providing evaluations, and all 5 members, with the exception of Ms. Luck, who was not here, but we have Mr. Matthews. That gets all compiled. The numerical part just gets averaged out, and then all the comments, the chair is required to put them into a narrative form, which I have done, and which I will go over presently. I'm going to go right to the narrative because the numbers are the numbers. So, May 20th, 2014, the narrative summary composite. The preparation of this document is a vital and robust tool to foster communication between the board and the town manager. A properly applied evaluation is an opportunity for a manager to point out strengths, celebrate successes, identify areas where improvement is needed, and to identify specific steps for improvement. Also, good communication allows for each person being evaluated to explain and substantiate actions and rationale where efforts are misunderstood or different than expected. If willing, the evaluator can often learn from the evaluatee, if that's a word, to the betterment of the organization. Properly applied evaluations foster good morale, identify opportunities for growth for both the organization and the individual, and strengthen the drive of the employee. An improperly applied evaluation does the opposite. When used as a whip or retaliatory weapon for perceived personal slights or exaggerated failings, with limited or no communication, discussion, or exchange of ideas, the evaluation process undermines not only the affected employee's morale, effort, and success, but then spreads through the organization. That is, in principle, what the whole evaluation process is designed to do. And in particular, for the town manager, it is broken down into 5 scoring sessions and 3, for lack of a better term, essay sections. So the scoring sections are in the following categories: relationship with the board, fiscal management, community and public relations, personnel administration, professional skills and abilities. And each of those sections are further broken down into 8 to 10 skill items, with points assigned ranking from 1 being unacceptable to 5, which is outstanding. This year, when total, the town manager scored an extremely strong, commendable ranking, really bordered on the line between commendable and outstanding. And this is the summary of each of those categories. So, relationships with the board. All members agreed that communication from the town manager is timely and helpful in their decision-making of issues being faced by the board. All members felt that they were being treated fairly and equally, which is vital to a well-functioning board. Where necessary, the town charter, bylaws, and policies are and were cited for purposes of guidelines or directions to the board. There are some areas that the town manager and their board will have to discuss as to certain enforcement authority of those bylaws and policies. In fiscal management, as with prior years, the town manager remains an excellent steward of our finances. This is clearly her greatest strength. Budgetary and financial reports are prepared on time, presented with clarity, and made available to the public in various manners and media. Sound financial policies and practices continue to be added or refined when needed and followed during the fiscal year. Our current S&P bond rating of AA+ reflects that excellence. She has effectively worked with the board and with Labor Council in reaching mutually beneficial union contract agreements. In community and public relations, as the outwardly facing representative of the town manager conducts herself professionally and fairly to all with whom she deals. Her demeanor is one that is calm and attentive, but always positive and helpful. In her ability to communicate with the residents of Lunenburg on important matters, one has to look no further than town meeting to indicate how clear, concise, and available her information is. There are few questions and even fewer challenges or misunderstandings. The board and the public have grown to trust her research, her analysis, and her presentation. When questions are asked, they are answered thoughtfully, respectfully, and substantially. Sometimes those questions cannot be answered immediately, as further research may be needed or input from other sources may be required. While some describe this as lag, it was not commonly thought upon in that light. In the area of personnel administration, if this is the weakest scored category of the town manager, it is only because the other categories were scores of outstanding, while this is just commendable. Employee performance evaluations are still being developed, and once applied, action plans dealing with underperforming employees will have to be established. The necessity to delegate tasks to other employees or departments needs to be addressed, even though the board acknowledges that the staff is at a bare bones minimum, especially in the offices of the town manager and the Board of Selectmen. Under the professional skills and abilities, the town manager maintains the highest standards of ethics and honesty and demands that of those who work under her charge. Her planning and execution skills are outstanding and only limited by time and available resources. She takes responsibility for those who work under her charge. She is encouraged by the board to maintain active membership in her professional associations, as they are a good source of information and context that can benefit the town. The question being asked, what has the town manager done well? Unanimously, the financial and fiscal abilities of the town manager continue to be her greatest strength. She provides a sound fiscal framework and has the pulse of the financial health of the town. All financial reports, documents, and presentations are well analyzed and concisely presented. She has worked closely with the board and the FinCom to adopt and follow prudent financial policies. The introduction and reintroduction of regularly quarterly department head meetings is an appreciated and recognized improvement. And her hires over the past 2 years have been an enormous asset to the town. Now, with the proposal and approval at town meeting of the admin plan, we look for the newly created land use director to bring added continuity to the town departments, as well as a new focus on economic development in Lunenburg. What could the town manager do better? While personnel management, as reflected in this summary evaluation, has improved over past years, there is still room for improvement. Employee performance evaluations remain high on our list of things to continue addressing. We feel they are an important tool in determining where attention needs to be paid and what resources are required to correct them. It is also suggested that in order to stay current in their field, that staff be required to attend at least one seminar or professional conference per year relevant to their field. Similarly, departmental metrics as a way to statistically analyze how well a department as a whole is performing is also important and should be strengthened and implemented. And the delegation and distribution of the workload is critical if the town manager is to maintain her focus on higher level tasks that no one else can address. There needs to be some discussion and strategy on how to achieve this, even with the ever-tight financial picture. And the final question of what could the board do to help the town manager and what could the town manager do to help the board? The board must maintain its focus on representing the community, visions and its directions for the future, and policy discussions, and allow the town manager to manage the day-to-day operations and personnel issues without interference. This is something that could be best discussed in a workshop meeting environment where we could debate and clarify the duties and responsibilities of the board and the town manager in those areas that are not yet clearly defined or understood. The time has come to support the town manager with staff and resources required to accomplish the current workload in an effective and distributed manner. The town manager needs to clearly outline what she believes is needed to achieve this task, and the board needs to discuss ways to support and implement this. We can no longer afford not to address this issue. A running list of action items brought to the town manager's attention should be employed and made available to board members so they can be regularly reviewed. While some headway was finally made by the board in updating the policy manual, it must be completed. In fact, there's an agenda item tonight to review the open items. And finally, it has also been suggested that the board have regular monthly non-televised workshop meetings to discuss policies and meet with other boards, committees, and commissions for updates. The removal of the stage podium environment might be more conducive to increased productivity and open conversational discussion. However, this does come with some caution. While this might work for dry technical discussions such as policy discussions, it should not be used for any major issue facing the town, as we would be doing a grave disservice to the town to take discussion of this nature offline or off-air. Even as some topics can be uncomfortable in a televised setting, an honest and open exchange ultimately benefits everyone, and each member must speak openly with the courage of their convictions. This document is a public document. I believe you have handed it to media in attendance tonight.
I did not get
You did not? Okay, but we have some. And there are any questions or responses from the board first?
Mr. Chairman?
Mr. Ebersol?
This is my first evaluation process with the town manager, and I found that the process was very helpful. Based on my discussions with Carrie, there's not any surprises in here. She's very forthcoming of things that she needs to work on, or that she's not as forthcoming on the things that she excels, because she doesn't necessarily like to have that extra pat on the back. But I see this and the current board as another step forward in the full implementation of the town charter process and the full implementation of the position of town manager. One of the duties and one of the things that I would like to do on a going forward basis is every meeting read something from the town charter that would be of interest generally. But the role of the Board of Selectmen, which we're talking about clarifying our role versus the town manager, is to be policymakers, and that the town manager runs the town. And I would like to do whatever we can do to make sure that that process continues. And some of it means resources, and some of it means how we do our dialogue. But I would congratulate Mrs. Bardell regarding the evaluation and look forward to working with her.
Thank you. Any other comments from the board? I have two items that I want to address. First is, every year I mention this, and then this year we actually got it on our goals, although we didn't achieve them, and I want to put it high on our list of goals, Board of Selectmen goals, when we get to them in coming weeks. And that is, this is a good tool, but it's a very flawed tool. This particular implementation is a very flawed tool because of the grading system and the questions that we have in front of us. So we really need to revamp this so it can be, it more clearly reflects what our involvement with the town manager is and what's expected. And some things in here are tough to judge because we don't have day-to-day operations, and it kind of requires that you do. With that being said, I want to enter into the record that we have a letter that was presented to me tonight, addressed to the town of Lunenburg's Board of Selectmen from the town of Lunenburg department heads, and I will just read it in its entirety. Please be advised that on Thursday, May 15, 2004, a department head meeting was held at the Public Safety Building. In attendance were the police chief, the fire chief, the DPW director, the town clerk, the accountant, the treasurer, the council on aging director, the library director, and the building inspector and the technology director, along with the town manager. At that meeting, it was decided that we would respectfully make the following proposal to the Board of Selectmen for your kind consideration. On a day-to-day basis, we interact with the town manager. It is therefore our opinion that we would be able to provide the board with valuable input during the annual town manager's evaluation process. This daily interaction involves and impacts our departments and the overall efficiency of the municipal government. We feel that our input would be an asset to you in many areas. Below is a sample list of areas for evaluation of the town manager that we would be able to provide knowledgeable input, and they are protection of confidentiality, availability, fairness, interpersonal skills, treatment of all personnel as team members, consideration of the input of the town manager's decision making as regards all departments prior to implementation, It is our opinion that a town manager should be at the forefront to model for continuous improvement for all personnel. Therefore, the signatures below support the submission of this proposal. Please note that we would be willing to discuss this with you at your convenience, and it is signed sincerely yours, Fire Chief Patrick Sullivan, DPW Director Jack Rodriguez, Chief of Police James Marino, Council on Aging Director Doreen Noble, Building Inspector Michael Savageau, Library Director Martha Moore, IT Director Steve Malandrinos, Treasurer Shelley McKay, and Town Accountant Karen Brochu. Kathy Herrick's name is on here. She is not in town, so she has not signed this, but I presume that she probably will, since her name is on here and she was at that meeting. I think this is an excellent proposition, and I think it gives us another avenue to review. From our perspective, we get to review the town manager from policy and higher level boards, but I think it's important to get the team and the whole staff's approach from all the different departments about how they feel town manager has been working as part of the input that we use in creating our evaluation. So I would encourage us to discuss this further and incorporate much of what they've asked and see how we can implement it in the best way.
Mr. Chairman?
Excuse
me. I think that's a great idea. That's sort of part of the 360-degree feedback review. And perhaps we may want to look to the town manager to see what other, not people supervising or supervised by, might be appropriate for communication as well to add to the feedback. Not necessarily, excuse me, not necessarily in the scoring portion, but clearly on the feedback part.
Sure, I agree.
Mr. Chairman?
Mr. Toll.
I agree with Mr. Ebersol in that the more points of view towards performance of the town and the town manager in specific, the better data to go on. I think that the focus of any of these reviews is somewhat questionable over time in any organization, and whether its effectiveness is really a matter of how it's used, what it's used for, etc. But at the same time, I think all this data can do nothing but help, make for a better communication, which is what it's really all about, so that we're clear of our expectations from the town manager, and we're clear of the town manager's expectations of us as a board to be able to assist her in achieving and continuing to achieve a high level of performance.
Mr. Chairman, I absolutely agree that this is a very valuable tool. I do think it needs to be revisited. I think the input from the departments will be invaluable. I look forward to crafting something that really will make more sense in this evaluation process, because I think there are a number of things that, as you noted, it's very difficult for us to judge because we don't deal with the town manager on a day-to-day operations standpoint. So having the feedback from the departments, I think, will be a valuable tool. And I would recommend that over the course of the summer, we try to have a couple workshops to really flesh out what this evaluation tool should be. I don't want to get too far into the year before we do that, because as we talk about goals and I think getting quarterly updates on those goals is important. But as we talk about goals, I think the time to do that now. And I think refining this tool, it needs to be part of that discussion.
I agree. I mean, I don't know if this is too aggressive or not, but I certainly would like this in place by no later than the end of July, if not earlier. I think that is doable, and it'll be 1 month into the fiscal year, and I think that would be, fine to be able to do it at that point. Can you scan this in? Because I have the original here, and just send it to everybody so everybody has all the board members have a copy of that. That would be great. I'm saving the committee assignments when we get to committee reports. Okay, review list of outstanding Board of Selectmen policies and procedures and schedule for future discussion. So the last page of your packet, or it's the last 2 pages of your packet. Basically enumerate which ones are requiring additional review and ones that are under development. So, now we don't have a meeting next week.
You don't, no.
Right, so when would be, I'd like to, now that we're done with town meeting, done with the budgeting, done with the elections and everything, I'd like to put this on the agenda so we can address these, starting with the ones we want to review, while in the background, those of us members who have things to develop can develop those, and then hopefully by the time we're done with the review, we can take on the ones that are being developed.
The Finance Committee has been, I don't think this is on, has been working on the financial policies, and they have a final draft that they submitted to me for staff to review, and also we were going to send them out to our auditor and probably our financial advisor to review. So I think those would be ready for you first. The first meeting, the June 3rd meeting, is the meeting that I'm not going to be here, so I would rather that we not discuss it at that meeting. But the June 10th meeting, I think they certainly would be ready for you to review at that meeting. So if you wanted to schedule the financial policies for June 10th, and then maybe at the next meeting, everybody can go through, or before the next meeting, go through their assignments, and we can figure out where to go from there.
Okay. I just want to make sure we schedule a workshop for some point, even if we pick them off by doing an hour before a regular meeting, do an hour workshop, and we identify 2 or 3 policies and we just review them. We're so close to being done with them, and it's been years, so I don't want to leave it sit. I really want to make sure we complete these.
Well, do you want to try for 6 o'clock on June 10th to review the financial policies?
Sure. Let's put that. Is that okay with everyone?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And then maybe I can follow up with everybody else and sketch out a timetable for the rest of these.
Any questions about this list? Not about the content, obviously, but the list itself?
I think that some additional policies have come to light, and Bob, they may be things that you have suggested that may not be on this list. I put this together based on our last meeting on policies and procedures in March. And honestly, I don't know that I've noted them, but I believe you raised some concerns about some additional policies. So if there's something that's not on this list.
Yeah, if anybody thinks of something
yeah.
that in our course, I believe we kept good track of what was been on here, but I mean.
I think we've been talking about certain things, and one of mine was talking about Department of Revenue Certificate of Good Compliance, but that would be changing an existing policy, so I will talk about that.
Okay.
And then maybe, only because that may impact, if we have an oncoming land use director, we may want to confer with whoever that person is at that point, because that'll impact that.
That one wouldn't, because that would only be approval of anyone who collects meals tax.
Oh, this is the meals tax. Okay, I'm sorry.
Yeah,
I was
yeah.
thinking something else.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, so.
So our task is for our next board meeting, that all of us would be ready to report back on the status of these?
No, well, we're going to have people who have proposed policies under development. Like I have one, I think some people have been assigned on that last one, so we should begin working on those. But in the interim, on the first time we're going to meet about these will be the financial policies on 6/10, and we'll try to pick them off in either a full workshop in the summer if we get a very light agenda, or hour at a time meeting.
In the one under use of public buildings and section 505, is road signs, and we were given that policy.
Right.
So that's
Right,
yeah.
right, I saw that too. I mean, obviously some of these we're not doing, we're just waiting for it.
Right.
And sometimes things that you have to chase are just as important as things you have to develop yourself, so we
right,
just have to make sure we get them.
Right.
Mr. Chairman, section 308, sale of town-owned land,
That one's
it
done,
says
too.
here, BOS to develop a task force. Did you say that was done for?
Well, we have the criteria from the Open Space Committee. I don't know that we have criteria from the Planning Board. The Open Space Committee had drafted a policy, and they identified 6 attributes that they would like to see in any land that we were going forward, and this was discussed at town meeting relative to the Lane land, that it had 5 of them. So the Open Space has provided a kind of a framework that they would like to see implemented. But I believe when we originally talked about it, is we had talked about something from Open Space and something from planning. Now, whether or not we want to ask whether or not the planning board wants to weigh in on that.
This is
I'm a little
disposition.
unclear. Are
This
we
is
talking about
disposition.
208 or 308?
Oh, I'm sorry, I was talking of,
Disposition of chapter land is not
I
being
was talking,
drafted.
I was talking about disposition. Okay.
Okay, but disposition means getting rid of, not acquisition. I think that means acquisition of chapter land.
Yeah, I
Okay.
think we've got to look at that one. I'm talking at 208. I wasn't looking at 308.
And I was talking to 308, and what I was going to ask is, it says the Board of Selectmen is going to develop a task force. That's fine if you'd like to, Mr. Chairman, but we could, the building reuse can take that if you
right,
want us to.
Right, so what we need to do with these
Right.
workshops is identify that.
Okay.
Right. Again, Mrs. Bertram has taken on an enormous task, and I cannot thank her enough through this policies and
Right.
procedures process. All right, so we need to clarify one by one, because we really relied on her taking notes.
Mhm.
And as everybody knows, there's just a volume of things being talked about in these conversations over the table. We just need to make sure that first of all, she shouldn't be the only one doing it at this point, because now it's revisions, and really we need to have somebody else take the charge, and also just to make sure that things like that, just details aren't lost inadvertently, that's all. Okay, so we can talk about those. I know I have one I have to do about boot drives on public ways. Then we have some by tax collectors and treasurer, and I think we're okay with that. So the next one we're gonna have is on June 10th at 6 PM. We'll have a workshop before our televised meeting. Do we have minutes? These are the revised ones, right?
Yes.
Okay. And warrants. Accounts payable warrant in the amount of $303,604.02. Okay. Payroll in the amount of $619,440.07. And payroll deductions in the amount of $612,899.39. Action file issues.
Mr. Chairman?
Mrs. Bertram.
I believe all the members of this board received this information from our town manager. It's a seminar on economic development and resources for economic development being held at Mount Wachusett on June 4th. And I have responded that I'm going to attend. I think it's a very valuable meeting, very timely, given, that economic development is such a concern. It always has been, but there are tools out there that we can make use of. So just want to remind members of this board, and I wanted to ask if the planning board has also been invited to this.
I don't remember off the top of my head. If I haven't sent it to them, I can send it to them tomorrow.
And also the Building Reuse Committee, because one of the talks is about selling your communities, and it's regional marketing and collaboration. So, since we have property that we're looking to actively market, I think that we could get some good tools from this seminar, which is June 4th at Mount Wachusett. Registration is at 8:30 to 9, and then the talks go on until 10:45, and then there's a mayoral town hall from 11 to 12.
I realized, as before we left, I should have announced before we left the town manager's evaluation. The next step in the evaluation process, of course, is the town manager reviews this summary evaluation and then provides a self-evaluation that will also be discussed at a future meeting, hopefully not too long.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to determine or set a time or not. Can we do it on the 10th? Is that possible? Or would you want to the 17th?
Oh, no, we can do it on the 10th.
Okay, 10th, all right. Just wanted to make sure that bit was known. Okay, so now we come to committee reports, but before we go through the committee reports, obviously, we have a member who has changed, and this is just like we do the board reorganization. We also have the opportunity to switch committee assignments as liaisons to all the various boards we have listed here, boards, commissions, committees. So what I suggest is for Ms. Luxake, being her first night here, that we provide a list of what everybody is currently doing on the board, and then also a list of other things, not only board assignments, but other appointments that are not filled, and that not next week's meeting, on the June 3rd meeting, at the top of the meeting, we'll put in the committee assignments so that we can get everything filled out again. Is that okay with the board? Okay. So, Board of Health, any report?
The Board of Health had a meeting last night. The Agricultural Commission was there because there was a potential complaint regarding a agricultural situation. The complainant did not, they canceled the appointment, but Brad, and I can't remember his last name, from the Mass Farm Bureau was there, and along with two members of the Agricultural Commission, and talking about the new right to farm bylaw, which, as he stated, does not create any new rights, as the Agricultural Commission told us, but provides a communication device. The Board of Health still remains a enforcing authority. That doesn't change, but the Agricultural Commission can be a source of communication between the parties. So that was a good initial opportunity. The other thing I noted in talking to the Farm Bureau myself, there is an online handbook for agricultural commissions that runs the entire gamut of what does it mean to be a commission, to the open meeting law, how to run a meeting, Robert's Rules of Order, various things like that. I was quite impressed with it, and in fact would hopefully try to take some of that and use that for other committees and towns, because that's often what the open meeting and the public records violations that go on are often through ignorance, and if we can provide a tool for them, I want to take that part. But it was a good communication between the Board of Health and Agriculture Commission. It was the first time they had the opportunity to talk together as two separate boards. Other than that, a pretty quiet meeting.
Mr. Chairman, before we go on to the next report, do we have a liaison to the Agricultural Commission, and does it make sense that we do, or do you think that's not necessary?
We have one now,
Since-
and I don't know, but I mean, I'm sure there's lots of boards and commissions we don't have liaisons to. Well, I don't know about lots, but.
We may want to have a discussion
We
about
can have a
which,
discussion
Yeah,
about
I
it.
think that we
Absolutely.
should
Absolutely.
which
talk
ones we
about
should
it.
have liaisons to versus which ones we should have regular meetings with, because I was looking at the list as I was thinking that we were going to do it tonight, but it's like, all right, which ones would I like to be, which ones, why do we do it? What are we
I think
missing
we
on
need to have
something
that
else? So
discussion.
maybe that's a mini workshop type of thing.
I do want to point out something that was said earlier in tonight's meeting, and I hesitated, but because we're talking about liaison positions, and I will explain what I believe they are for and what their purpose is, why we instituted them, and what they are not. This is my viewpoint, and we'll see. Maybe, hopefully, we all agree. Is that it was designed so that this board could be kept informed of what's going on at other committees' meetings, not to participate necessarily. I mean, you can certainly ask questions, and not to be that person that that board goes to. It was really there to be an ear on the wall so that the information that gets discussed can be brought to this board so we're not surprised by anything if we think something's coming down the line. That was why we did it. And so any board, for instance, that has a vacancy, that should be reported to the Board of Selectmen as a whole, not to the liaison. It's not a big issue in this case, but it really should be noted that's not the role of the liaison.
Yeah, and I will just add to that. I know this came up as a question at a planning board meeting. The way I view it is I'm there to observe. And if the question comes up that they have about actions of this board that we have taken, or a specific question comes up and I can be of assistance, that's great. But I'm not there to be a regular participant in the meeting. I am there to observe and report back to this board.
It's just so, I mean, I believe that's everybody's.
Clearly a two-way communication device,
right?
Not a participation device.
Exactly.
Right. And not a reporting structure device.
Right.
I mean, so right. Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I don't disagree at all, but I just, in the course of being a liaison, you do develop a relationship with that board, and if members of that board or the board as a whole would like to use you as an entree to the Board of Selectmen to propose a joint meeting or to propose an action, I don't think that should be frowned upon. By the same token, I think where it calls for a board to interact with the board as a whole, they should interact with the board as a whole through you.
Right.
It matters, through the town
an
manager.
official, I guess what I'm saying is an official act needs to be gone through official channels. Yes, obviously using person as a portal to say, hey, listen, at your next meeting, run the idea of having a joint meeting. That's perfectly fine.
Mm-hmm.
That's not what I'm referring to.
I just want to point out before we go on, the MPO is a little bit different. That is a voting seat, which is an elected
You're not a
voting
liaison,
seat, and
right.
I'm not
You're
a
a
liaison.
member, right.
I'm a
There's a
member.
difference,
So there's
yeah,
a difference in that one. So.
I think, Mr. Chairman, there's a couple that are like that, and we should be specific when we get specific next meeting.
Yeah, we could even have two different headings, one liaison reports,
Yeah,
and the
I
other
think that-
committee reports. So like capital planning, it's a seat.
It's a seat,
Mhm.
right.
As opposed
Okay, I think that's a good distinction and keep it clear.
Yeah.
And just to follow up on your comment, the comment with the library multiple member body, when they have a vacancy, they shall give forthwith give notice of such vacancy to the Board of Selectmen.
Right.
So we need to educate the boards that sending it to me as the liaison was not sending it to the Board of Selectmen.
Right.
Although they may be thinking that I was that contact person. So I don't know if they CC Carrie at the same time.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
So part of it becomes how
And I, in no fashion, want to be critical of what happened. I think it's a misunderstanding, and I just think that we just need to make them aware of that, and other boards aware of that. Because I think, because we've done it so long, I think the liaison structure to some people becomes that's who I should talk to. But and clearly, in some cases, especially with vacancies, it's not.
Yep.
Okay. Building Reuse Committee.
No report since the last meeting. Our next meeting is June 2nd at 6:30.
Where?
Here in Town Hall.
Okay. Capital Planning.
Your Honor.
Hiatus?
Yes.
Finance Committee.
We'll meet this coming Thursday at 7 p.m. It is not the intention to televise that.
Okay. Library Board of Trustees.
No report.
MPO.
The last meeting of the MPO, the fiscal 15, fiscal 18, there were several drafts of the TIP that were presented. Two of them moved the Summer Street project out to fiscal 18 and put a project in Sterling ahead of it, which is a high priority project due to safety concerns, which is the Route 12 exit off of 190. I lobbied to keep the Summer Street project in, and there were a number of reasons why I did that. Namely is that the Summer Street project rates much higher in the overall evaluation of the project, as well as the fact that we're much farther along in the design stage. And there was a comment made that that Mass DOT felt that the project would not be ready until fiscal 18. And I explained that we will be ready, and that the town is committed to moving this project forward. there was some discussion with Mass DOT prior to the meeting that they didn't believe that we had the funding to complete the design. And during the meeting, I pointed out that this community is very committed to moving that project forward, and if we have to supplement local funds to do that, we will. Obviously our hope is that we will get the funds released in the transportation bond bill, but that we are moving this project forward. And I outlined the fact that we did have the utilities meeting with the communities as well as all the utilities, and that we are continuing to move forward. After that discussion, it was voted to go with the scenario that keeps the Summer Street project in fiscal 17. And that project has been released for public comment, and I would recommend that we send a letter of support for that project and outlining our commitment as a community to facilitating that project, as well as we look for some support from our representatives, because I think it's going to be crucial moving forward that we keep this momentum going. Additionally, I want to note that I am not going to be present. We've released it for public comment, and I am not going to be present at the meeting that it's going to be voted on, which is June 18th. So I need to send a designee, and that designee would be my official designee to vote in the event that I can't attend a meeting. And so I wanted to ask if there's anyone on this board that wants to serve in that capacity, or if the town manager, or if the DPW director, but I do need to name a designee prior to that June 18th meeting.
And we have time, so.
Right.
Right, so let's make sure it's done.
Right.
At the next meeting that we have. If not before, then by the next meeting, so if anybody here wants to attend and be the designee, or if town manager, if you have the ability to be there, understand, I'm sure Paula can bring you up to speed about how the process works. What day of the week is that?
It's on a Wednesday at 1 o'clock.
And it's in?
The MRPC building in Leominster.
Okay.
Couple other things on the MPO. We did have a meeting on Friday at Chase Road, and Jonathan Gulliver, who's the director, the district highway director for District 3, was in attendance, as well as Arthur Frost, who's the MassDOT representative for District 3, and a couple other representatives. And we talked about the Chase Road project and our desire to put it in as a book job. It is currently in the appendix of the TIP. There was strong support. Our engineer was present. We did take a tour of the road, and what they're going to do is send out some traffic engineers the second week of June to take a look at the project with Jack. But it was a great meeting, and I'm hopeful that we can move that project forward as well. Additionally, we had some great information on the signs. You guys all know about the sign inventory, and we've done that inventory. We have that project. HSIP money, which is Highway Safety Improvement Program, is available for signage, and to correct our signage in town is about $44,000. So, there is a potential to incorporate that in a TIP if we move that process forward. So Rich Benevito, who's the engineer, was going to look into that. And finally, I did have a discussion with Jack about trying to incorporate some of our other paving projects. We had gone through the meeting, and there are several projects planned that are on federal aid eligible roadways. And so what I'd like to do is at least initiate those discussions with DOT and MRPC to see if we can get funding for those projects as well. So that is the MPO.
Excellent. Well, once again, I want to thank you for your tireless efforts on those two projects, especially Chase Road and Summer Street, and keeping us on there. I think we heard loud and clear from this board and from the town meeting that we really need to make the Summer Street design happen one way or another. I think that becomes clear, so that will become a priority. I'd like to see it a priority of the board, too, to try to work with the town manager, find out with our state legislators how best we can do this. I mean, obviously, the easiest way is if the transportation bond money gets released. But if that does not happen, we have to be a little more self-reliant at how we can do that. But thank you very much.
Welcome.
Planning Board.
No report.
PAC, I'm going to take this opportunity to say that now that the town meeting is over, I mentioned this last week too, so we are looking for people. We had some interviewees before town meeting who are interested in joining PAC. We're going to be basically appointing 5 members. So if you are interested in joining PAC and helping that get back on its feet and running again, that would be great. You can fill out a talent bank form from the website and come visit us, and we're really looking forward to jump-starting that. And then once it's formed, I believe we probably, as a jump-start, we should have a joint meeting with this board and their committee, just to help them organize and get started again, and then review the process with them, just to give them an initial push.
Mr. Chairman?
Mr. Ebersol.
Since you made that comment, that is theoretically going to people who are connected to the local cable, because they're hearing it, but for the newspapers, we would encourage people to come on that are actually connected to the cable, but it is open to anyone. But part of the thing would be is making sure that we actually have good representation from people who receive the service.
Right. And talking about cable, I also have asked the town manager, because usually our cable contract with Comcast expires in 2018, correct? 17. And usually we start the process of beginning discussions with them 3 years early, which this would be this year. So we're going to try to initiate that conversation and get that ball rolling as we go forward. School Advisory Committee on Acceptance and Diversity.
No further reports since last week.
Okay. School Committee and School Building Committee, of course, Mr. Matthews was on. So we don't have any reports from there, and that will be the 2 positions we'll need to fill. Sewer Commission.
Sewer Commission met last week, and of interest, there's similar to the extension of the line down Lancaster Ave. They are looking at an extension down Highland Street from Oak Ave and Main Street, following the procedures and the lessons learned from that part. They are moving forward as far as implementing the votes of town meeting for the borrowing extension of the Pratt Lakeview extension areas. And they have started the process of visiting various homes in town regarding the infiltration inflow reduction process. They're trying to schedule appointments. They have, to date, 1 sump pump has been discovered, and they're working with a homeowner to remedy that situation, because that water should not go through the sewer. But that's an ongoing process that they've been working on.
Excellent, thank you. And Mass Broadband, we probably should be dropping off, although I still have to follow up on the one remaining issue who nobody seems to want to respond to me on about pricing. So, town manager reports or department reports, do you have any?
Just a couple, a reminder that the annual EMS cookout is tomorrow at 6 o'clock at the Public Safety Building. The board is invited to attend. Also on Sunday, June 8th at 9 a.m., and this is open to the general public, there is a memorial service at the Public Safety Building to recognize public safety officials. And that is, if you haven't had the chance to attend that, a very nice ceremony that's done on an annual basis, and I would encourage you to attend. Also wanted to announce that the Mulpus Road, Townsend Harbor Road intersection improvements are under construction. That project will go on through the end of this month or into early June, depending on how it progresses, and requesting that people who regularly travel through that intersection during business hours seek alternate routes. There is some information about the project on the town's website. And one last item, I received a request from the Girl Scouts of Central and Western Massachusetts. We have a handful of girls who are Lunenburg residents who are receiving the Silver Award, which is the highest achievement that girls in grades 6 through 8 can earn in Girl Scouting. This is a significant accomplishment, as earning this award requires many years of challenge and commitment to service leadership, career exploration, and interest projects. They did ask that we send a letter of recognition, commendation to these girls. I had Linda follow up because I wasn't sure the way it was written, if they wanted one letter for all of them or something individually. Somehow that translated into proclamations, which I didn't realize until today. It's not on the agenda. There's obviously nobody here to receive these, and I don't know that they expect to come to a meeting to receive them, but I would ask that you sign them this evening because they are looking to have these by June 1st for their ceremony on June 14th, and you don't have a meeting again until June 3rd. So I'm going to pass these down for signature, and if you want it on the June 3rd meeting, we certainly could do that, but they didn't ask to come to a meeting.
Anybody have any issue with signing Girl Scout proclamations?
They come with cookies?
I can bring cookies if you. I have a freezer full of cookies. They're the yucky ones that are left over.
I think that's a conflict of nutritional ethics. Above or below? I'm assuming above, right?
Did you have any other?
I don't know, I'm sorry.
I just want to go back to the MPO, if that's okay. There was one thing that I forgot, and that is that at the MPO meeting, one of the things, you guys all, or most of you know me well enough to know that I read everything, and one of the things that has bothered me about the MPO process is we get a list of projects, but it doesn't give a lot of detail about the project, and trying to find information about the project is impossible. And so at a couple of the meetings, I've asked questions of, well, why has that project gone up? Or give me a description of what's going on with that project. Why did it rank higher? So one of the things I mentioned at the last MPO meeting is that moving forward, I would like to have an overview of the projects when we're considering what should be funded and what shouldn't. I'd like at the beginning of the process for there to be an overview of the projects. And apparently many of the MPOs in the region are now doing this. So that is going to be something that happens moving forward. But tomorrow night at the MJTC meeting, it's very late in the process, but they're going to do that with the projects that have been included in this year's TIP. So there's going to be at 7 o'clock in Leominster tomorrow at the MRPC building. So.
Will that result in a document that we can review? Or
unfortunately not. You know, it's really a one-line sentence, and that's what's so difficult when you're going through it. It's almost, you know, it's reams and reams of papers, but everything has one line, and there's never an overview of why this is rated. You know, it's got a high crash scene, or it's a visibility issue, or this is a bridge reconstruction, and there's just not a lot of detail. So I'm hoping that moving forward we can fix the process, and I know the directive from the MassDOT secretary was to come up with something at our next MPO meeting of how we're going to incorporate that moving forward. So.
I have to say that if you describe it as a one-line sentence and then also give it the attribute of not very descriptive, unless it's a James Joycean type sentence, I would say that you're being very generous that it's not being very descriptive.
It really, and Phyllis has been at the meetings, and she has seen the paperwork, and it's just very, very vague. And so I went to the Mass DOT website, and specifically the Sterling project puzzled me because we went from $1 million to $6 million, and now we're back down to $3 million. And so trying to understand how that's happening and what's going on, and so asking for more information. So.
You are finished with your reports? Is there any final public comment from the board this evening? Any final public comment from the public? Seeing none, I would entertain a motion. Before we do that, I should say that our next meeting is going to be June 3rd. Next week is the last Tuesday of the month, so we do not meet. So Tuesday, June 3rd at 7 p.m.
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. Good night, everyone, and we'll see you in 2 weeks.